The river whispered secrets only the spirits could understand. Beneath the shimmering waters, where sunlight danced like golden threads, lay the mystical kingdom of the merfolk. Coral palaces rose from the depths, their towers carved from mother of pearl, glowing softly in the eternal blue. Schools of fish wove through currents like flocks of birds, and melodies of ancient songs echoed through the currents, carrying tales of beauty, grace, and wisdom. At the heart of this world sat Queen Adesola, draped in a flowing robe of deep indigo, adorned with golden shells and pearls that glowed like stars. She was regal, her presence both mesmerizing and formidable. Every movement she made sent ripples through the water, as if the ocean itself bowed before her. The merfolk gathered around, their scales shimmering like liquid gems, awaiting her command. "Beauty," she declared, her voice smooth yet commanding, "is the gift we are born with. It is our strength, our power, our pride." Her sharp gaze moved over her subjects. But beauty is also fragile, and like a flame, it can be snuffed out by those who do not understand its worth. The merfolk murmured in agreement, their voices rising in song, praising the splendor of their realm. Yet beyond the depths of the ocean, where the land met the sky, another kingdom reigned. The city of Bomu was a world of towering structures, where the hum of wealth echoed through its streets. The scent of spices and burning oil filled the air, and merchants shouted promises of gold and silk to those who could afford them. But wealth here was not measured in beauty, it was counted in power. At the very top of this kingdom, ruling from a palace of cold steel and polished ivory, was Obadele. His name alone was enough to command fear and respect. His empire stretched across lands, his wealth unmatched. Yet despite his riches, no one dared to look him in the eyes. Once he had been a man whose face made women sigh and poets weep. But greed had led him down a forbidden path. He had sought more power, more beauty, more control over the world. And in his arrogance, he had made a deal with the river spirits, one that left him cursed. Now his face was a thing of nightmares, twisted, monstrous, hidden behind shadows and silk. Those who saw him recoiled in fear. Those who did not whispered of the terrible price he had paid for his ambition. He ruled from the shadows, feared yet untouchable, his heart growing heavier with each passing day. But while power weighed upon Obadele, another heart beneath the waves ached for something more. Zelina, daughter of Queen Adesola, was the most admired mermaid in the kingdom. Her beauty was legendary. Hair like woven midnight, skin like moon-kissed pearls, eyes that held the depth of the ocean. When she swam, even the water seemed to sigh in admiration. Yet beauty was a burden she had never asked for. Each day she sat upon the highest coral tower, gazing beyond the surface, beyond the world she knew. She watched the humans, watched how they laughed, cried, struggled, and fought for things greater than appearance. There was something raw, something real about them that called to her. "I do not understand them," she murmured one evening, her fingers tracing the rippling surface. "They are not like us, yet they feel so much." A voice, firm yet laced with warning, cut through her thoughts. "They are dangerous." Queen Adesola drifted beside her, eyes dark as the deep sea. You watch them, but you do not see them for what they truly are: greedy, selfish, destructive. She lifted her hand and the water before them shifted, showing ghostly images of mermaids long lost to the human world, taken, tricked, betrayed. "The land is not meant for us," the queen said, "and no good will come from longing for a world that will never be ours." Zelina turned away, but her mother's words settled in her chest like a stone. Yet as the moon rose and the world fell silent, her heart remained restless. And so she swam to the forbidden waters. The river banks were a place of mystery, where the land and sea met in whispered conversations. Here, hidden from her mother's watchful eyes, Zelina watched the humans closer. She saw their joys, their sorrows, the love in their eyes when they embraced. And for the first time she wondered, what if there was more to life than just being beautiful? Far beyond the river, in the heart of Bomu, Obadele stared at his reflection, the weight of his past pressing upon him. The river spirit's curse had been clear. Only a love untouched by vanity could set him free. But how could one love what they could not bear to look upon? He had all the wealth in the world, yet he was utterly alone. The ocean churned with fury, waves rising like great hands reaching for the sky. The waters, once calm and glistening under the sun, darkened under Queen Adesola's rage. The merfolk trembled in silence, their luminous tails flickering like frightened fireflies. The queen's throne of polished coral and pearls gleamed ominously as she fixed her piercing gaze upon her daughter. Zelina knelt before her mother, heart pounding. She had long known this moment would come, yet she had not expected the queen's anger to be this fearsome. "You dare defy me?" Queen Adesola's voice cracked like thunder, sending ripples through the water. "After all I have taught you, all I have warned you about, you still covet the ways of the land dwellers." Zelina kept her head low, yet her voice, though soft, held firm. "Mother, they are not all as you say. I have seen love, kindness." "Enough!" the queen bellowed, rising from her throne. "Love? Kindness? Is that what you saw when the sea sisters were betrayed and dragged from the waters in chains? When the river spirits were defiled for their gifts? Have you forgotten the old stories?" Zelina swallowed, hands trembling. "I do not forget, Mother, but I also cannot ignore what I have seen." Queen Adesola's expression darkened. "Then you have chosen your path." A powerful wind howled through the kingdom, stirring the waters into a violent tempest. The sea spirits emerged, their translucent forms twisting and spiraling around Zelina. Their whispers, like the echoes of lost souls, filled the deep. "She shall be cast from the waters," the spirits intoned, their voices layered with ancient sorrow. Zelina gasped as an unbearable force pulled at her body. Pain coursed through her veins, her shimmering tail splitting apart. The ocean itself rejected her, the currents turning against her, dragging her upwards. Queen Adesola's voice rang with finality. "You will live among them as one of them, and until you find love untainted by vanity or deception, you shall never return." The last thing Zelina saw before she was swallowed by the light above was her mother, standing still, her expression unreadable. The world of air was nothing like the embrace of the sea. The moment Zelina's body touched the riverbank, the pain of transformation gave way to an unbearable stillness. The once weightless grace of her movements was gone, replaced by the heavy burden of limbs she did not know how to use. She lay gasping, chest rising and falling in unfamiliar rhythm. The water still clung to her skin, but it no longer carried her. The warmth of the sun scorched her bare back, and the roughness of the earth bit into her flesh. When she opened her eyes, she saw the sky for the first time, not as a distant wonder, but as something real. It stretched endlessly above her, so vast it made her dizzy. The sound of voices startled her. A group of villagers had gathered nearby, their eyes wide with suspicion. "Who is she?" a woman whispered. "She came from nowhere." "Look at her beauty," another muttered. "Too perfect, like a spirit in disguise." A man stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "Or a deceiver, using her looks to fool us. No woman that fine should be wandering alone." Zelina tried to speak, but her throat was dry, her voice foreign even to herself. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and her arms trembled from weakness. She reached out, hoping for kindness. The villagers stepped back. Obadele stood at the highest balcony of his grand estate, watching the city of Bomu stretch out before him. The golden spires of wealth and power gleamed under the setting sun, yet he knew all too well that beneath their brilliance lurked envy and treachery. The rumors had reached him before the last light faded. A strange woman, found by the river, as beautiful as the dawn but lost like a child. He had learned long ago that beauty deceived, that the world only valued what it could take. Yet something in the tale of the river woman unsettled him. "Bring her here," he ordered his men. When Zelina was brought before him, Obadele felt his breath catch. She was unlike any woman he had ever seen, not just for her beauty, but for the way her eyes carried the weight of a world beyond his own. Zelina stared at him, taking in the scars that marked his face, the disfigurement that had turned him into the feared beast of Bomu. Yet unlike the others, she did not flinch. "You are not afraid?" Obadele asked. Zelina's voice, though soft, was steady. "You are not the first to wear a mask." Obadele studied her, sensing a truth she did not speak. He saw the exhaustion in her posture, the hunger she tried to hide. "You have nowhere to go," he said simply. "Stay here." Zelina hesitated. She had been cast from the ocean, stripped of her power, and left with nothing but a curse she did not yet understand. And now, here stood a man who should have been her enemy, offering her shelter. With a slow nod she accepted, but neither knew that their fates had already begun to entwine in ways neither could control. Zelina sat alone in the vast chamber, the golden ornaments around her feeling heavier than ever before. She traced the smooth surface of a jeweled bracelet, her mind drifting to all that had passed. Obadele had given her everything, protection when she had none, kindness when she had not earned it. And yet, she had kept him at a distance, believing him to be the cursed one. But now, as she sat in the silence of his absence, a thought struck her like lightning through the sky. Had she been the one who was blind all along? Zelina rose from her seat, her breath unsteady. Every moment, every small gesture, the way Obadele's hands had shielded her from the cold, the way his deep voice softened when he spoke her name, flashed through her mind like scattered pieces of a puzzle coming together. Love is not in the face. Love is in the soul. The truth seared through her, unbearable in its clarity. She had spent her life longing for the ocean, believing that without it, she was nothing. But Obadele, he had given her something the ocean never had, a place to belong. But where was he now? The sudden thought sent dread surging through her. She rushed to the window. The winds carried an unease, the night whispering secrets she could not understand. Then a shadow flickered near the river's edge. She turned away from the window and ran. By the river, a figure sat hunched over a walking staff, his face hidden beneath a worn hood. The scent of damp earth and ancient wisdom clung to him. As Zelina approached, the old man lifted his head, revealing piercing eyes that gleamed like the stars above. "You seek the man who walks with sorrow," he said, his voice a blend of age and mystery. Zelina's breath hitched. "Yes, have you seen him?" The man tilted his head. "A man on the edge of despair will seek the place where the world forgets him." His gnarled fingers pointed toward the riverbank. "But child, your fate is not yet sealed." She frowned. "What do you mean?" The beggar leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "If you choose wealth, you will remain human, but your heart will wither with time. If you choose love, your mermaid form will return, but the sea will never welcome you again." Zelina's chest tightened. "Never?" The old man only smiled, his form flickering like mist in the moonlight. "Every path has a price." Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone. Zelina's feet pounded against the earth as she ran, the village blurring past her. The whispers of the townsfolk slithered around her like snakes. She searches for him now? After all this time? Too late. The beast has left. She ignored them. Number Y will not be too late. Her heart pounded. The footprints in the sand were faint, already fading beneath the wind's embrace. She followed them blindly, the river's roar growing louder with every desperate step. And then she saw him. Obadele stood at the edge of the river, his powerful form hunched, his face shadowed. His feet were already in the water, as if he sought to become one with the currents. "Obadele!" His body tensed, but he did not turn. She stumbled forward, breathless. "Please don't go." His voice was hollow. "Why are you here?" Zelina fell to her knees before him, her hands trembling. Without hesitation, she reached for the golden rings on her fingers, the earrings that had once symbolized status, the silk belt tied around her waist. One by one, she tore them away, casting them into the river. "I do not choose riches," she whispered. The wind shifted. "I do not choose the sea." The river stilled. "I choose you." Obadele's head lifted, his dark eyes met hers, raw with disbelief and something else, hope. The earth trembled beneath them. The waters rippled outward as if the very spirits of the land had drawn breath. A golden light unfurled from the sky, wrapping them in its embrace. The whispers of the ancestors rose like a song in the wind. "The spell is broken." Obadele gasped, his body shuddering. The monstrous form that had burdened him for so long began to shift, his skin shedding its curse like the breaking of dawn. His hands, once gnarled and clawed, grew smooth. His face, once feared by all, softened into the man he had always been beneath. Zelina stared, awestruck. He was beautiful. As the first rays of sunlight crested the horizon, Obadele reached for her, and this time she did not pull away. The first light of dawn stretched across the land, casting a golden glow over the river's surface. The air was thick with silence, save for the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant cries of waking birds. Obadele stood motionless at the water's edge, his breath shallow, his body trembling as the curse unraveled. A deep warmth surged through his limbs, a force neither seen nor fully understood. The monstrous features that had once marked him as an outcast, clawed hands, jagged skin, eyes that glowed like embers, melted away like mist in the morning sun. The ancestors' whispers, once heavy with judgment, now carried a new tone, one of reverence. "It is done," the wind seemed to murmur. Obadele gasped, gripping his own hands, feeling the smoothness of his human skin. He touched his face, the rough edges gone, replaced by the contours he had long forgotten. But even in his restoration, he felt no triumph, no elation. He was no longer a beast, but neither was he the proud ruler he had once been. Zelina stood a few steps away, watching him, her eyes filled with something deeper than wonder. Love. It was not the hesitant love of duty, nor the love born of pity. It was the love of one who had seen another's soul stripped bare and found it worthy. Obadele turned to her, his voice hesitant. "Am I free, or is this another test?" She stepped closer, her fingers brushing against his. "The only test left is the one you give yourself." A whispering wind swept through the trees, carrying with it the scent of salt and the distant call of waves. The sea had not forgotten its daughter. The river spirit's words echoed in Zelina's mind. She could return to the ocean's embrace, to the life she once knew, or remain here, bound to the land, bound to love. She turned towards the river, staring into its depths. Once the sight of water had meant freedom. Now it felt like a distant dream, a past self calling to her. But was it truly home? She looked at Obadele standing there uncertain, waiting. In his eyes she saw not expectation but hope, a hope that did not demand, only longed. Her choice was never truly between land and sea. It was between what she had been and what she had become. "I was never meant for the waves," she whispered. "My heart has already chosen its shore." The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen force. The river's surface rippled, and from the mist a regal figure emerged, Queen Adesola, her presence as commanding as the tides themselves. Draped in flowing garments woven from the ocean's light, her eyes shimmered with the wisdom of ages past. Zelina held her breath. She had expected fury, disappointment, anything but the quiet sorrow that lingered on her mother's face. The queen studied her daughter for a long moment before speaking. "I once thought beauty was our greatest power, that it would shield us, elevate us. But I see now that I was blind." She stepped closer, raising a hand but not touching her. "You have chosen a path I did not foresee, and yet I cannot call it wrong." Zelina swallowed hard. "Mother, Adesola silenced her with a gentle lift of her hand. "No apologies, my child. You have seen what I could not. True power is not in the face, nor in the riches we carry. It is in love that does not demand, in wisdom that does not seek to possess." The river swelled around her feet, but she did not sink. Instead, she extended a final blessing, her voice both firm and tender. "Go, my daughter. The sea will always know your name, but your destiny is no longer beneath its waves." With a final glance at Obadele, a knowing look in her eyes, Queen Adesola faded into mist, her presence returning to the waters. The river stilled, the sky brightened, and Zelina exhaled, her heart unburdened. With his curse lifted, Obadele returned to his people, not as the ruler they had feared, but as the man he had fought to become. He did not enter the palace alone. Zelina walked beside him, her presence silent yet powerful. The golden halls, once symbols of his wealth, now seemed empty of meaning. Riches had not saved him. Strength alone had not saved him. He stood before the gathered crowd, the same people who had once whispered of his monstrous form, who had cast fearful glances in his direction. Now they watched with wide eyes, uncertain, waiting. Obadele took a deep breath. "I have spent my years building walls of gold, believing they would shield me from the world, but I was blind. A kingdom is not measured by its riches, but by its people." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "From this day forward, these doors will not be closed to the poor, the weak, the forgotten. We will build not with gold, but with kindness." Zelina reached for his hand, and he held hers in return. The palace gates were opened, food was shared, the sick were tended to, and slowly the whispers of fear transformed into words of admiration. The village itself began to change. The same people who had once shunned Obadele now spoke of his kindness. They marveled at Zelina, the woman who had once belonged to the sea, yet chose the land for love. And beyond the village, where the river met the sea, the waves whispered a name, one that would never be forgotten.